On April 30, 1789, a former soldier and planter, hesitant to re-enter public life, stood before a crowd in New York City. He placed his hand on a Bible and took the oath of office, becoming the first president of the United States. His name was George Washington, a man whose leadership would forge a new nation from the fires of revolution. But how did this Virginia farmer become the indispensable figure of American history? His journey was one of trial, error, and an unwavering commitment to a cause greater than himself. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in colonial Virginia. He grew up in a world of privilege, part of a wealthy family that owned vast tobacco plantations and, like many of his time, enslaved people. Unlike many of his peers, Washington didn't receive an extensive formal education. Instead, his classroom was the Virginia wilderness. As a young surveyor, he learned to be precise, patient, and methodical. These practical skills, combined with a natural sense of discipline and responsibility, shaped the calm, stoic character he would become known for. His ambition soon led him to military service. As a young officer in the colonial militia during the French and Indian War, Washington was eager but inexperienced. He made mistakes, faced defeat, and learned hard lessons about military strategy, the importance of supplies, and the challenges of leading men in battle. These early struggles were his crucible, forging the resilience that would become his greatest asset. He learned that leadership wasn't just about winning glorious victories. It was about enduring, adapting, and holding everything together when the odds seemed impossible. Those lessons proved invaluable. In 1775, as tensions with Great Britain boiled over into war, the Second Continental Congress needed a commander for its fledgling army. They unanimously chose Washington. The task was monumental. He commanded a ragtag force of farmers and militia, poorly trained, underfunded, and lacking even basic supplies like shoes and gunpowder. Their enemy, the British Empire, the most powerful military machine on the planet. The early years of the war were brutal. In 1776, after successfully forcing the British out of Boston, Washington suffered a series of devastating losses in New York. His army was routed, and the dream of independence was on the verge of collapse. Lesser men would have surrendered, but Washington refused. In the dead of winter, with his army freezing and morale at rock bottom, he planned a daring gamble. On Christmas night, 1776, he led his men across the treacherous, ice-choked Delaware River. They surprised and defeated a force of Hessian mercenaries at Trenton, and followed it up with another stunning victory at Princeton. These weren't massive battles, but they were psychological thunderbolts. They breathed life back into the Revolution, proving that the Continental Army could fight and win. Washington's genius wasn't always in battlefield brilliance. More often, it was his strategic persistence. He knew he couldn't beat the British in a head-to-head slugfest. So he played a different game. He kept his army alive, avoiding catastrophic defeats, wearing down the enemy, and waiting for the right opportunities. He inspired loyalty in his men, who endured horrific conditions at places like Valley Forge because they believed in him. He skillfully navigated the complex politics of the war, coordinating with a weak Congress and 13 squabbling states to keep the war effort afloat. His leadership was the glue that held the entire revolution together. It was this patient strategy that enabled decisive victories, like the capture of a British army at Saratoga in 1777, which brought the French into the war as an American ally, and finally, the climactic victory at Yorktown in 1781, where a second British army surrendered, effectively ending the war. With victory secured in 1783, Washington faced his most defining moment. He held command of a victorious army, and many expected him to become a king or a military dictator, as was common throughout history. Instead, he did something that shocked the world. He traveled to Congress, formally resigned his commission, and returned home to his farm at Mount Vernon. This single act was perhaps more revolutionary than the war itself. It demonstrated his profound commitment to Republican ideals, that power should rest with the people, not with a single man. Even his enemy, King George III, reportedly said that if Washington did this, he would be the greatest man in the world. But his country wasn't finished with him yet. The new nation was struggling under a weak government. In 1787, Washington was called back to service, this time to preside over the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. His steady, unifying presence was crucial as the delegates debated and compromised to create a new framework for government, the United States Constitution. This document established a strong, yet limited, federal system with checks and balances designed to protect liberty, Once the Constitution was ratified, there was only one choice for the nation's first leader. In 1789, George Washington was unanimously elected president. He faced the colossal task of turning the words on the Constitution's parchment into a functioning reality. He had to build a government from scratch. He established the first cabinet, working to unify rival political factions, most notably Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. He supported Hamilton's ambitious financial plan to establish the nation as credit by paying off war debts, creating a tax system, and founding a national bank. When farmers in western Pennsylvania rebelled against a federal tax on whiskey, Washington personally led troops to suppress the Whiskey Rebellion, proving that the new government had the will and the authority to enforce its laws. In foreign affairs, he steered a careful course of neutrality. When war broke out between revolutionary France and Great Britain, many Americans wanted to side with France. But Washington knew the young, fragile nation could not afford another war. His policy of neutrality kept America out of European conflicts and allowed it to grow in peace and prosperity. He also established many of the traditions of the presidency that continue today, from the inaugural address to being called simply Mr. President. After serving 2 terms, Washington once again chose to walk away from power. He voluntarily stepped down, setting a powerful precedent for the peaceful transfer of power that became a cornerstone of American democracy. In his farewell address, he offered timeless advice to his fellow citizens. He warned against the dangers of deep political divisions, excessive debt, and becoming entangled in foreign alliances. It was a final lesson in leadership, a roadmap for the future he hoped the nation would follow. Washington retired to Mount Vernon, but his time as a private citizen was brief. He died on December 14, 1799. The nation mourned him as first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Today, George Washington is remembered not just on monuments and currency, but as the foundational figure of the American Republic. He was a man of his time, with its flaws and contradictions, yet he possessed a rare combination of integrity, restraint, and unwavering leadership. He didn't seize power, he legitimized it. He didn't crown himself. He empowered a nation. He remains the indispensable man who laid the cornerstone for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Thanks for watching. If you found this story of leadership and legacy inspiring, please give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. We'll see you in the next one.